What's good, everybody? Today we're diving into one of the most mysterious breakups in R&B history, the sudden split of B2K at the absolute peak of their fame. When the group disbanded in 2004, fans were left with more questions than answers. But now, almost 2 decades later, the truth is finally starting to emerge from those who were there. In a recent podcast appearance that's got the internet buzzing, Marques Houston, who is not only a close friend to the B2K members, but also part of the same management circle under Chris Stokes, dropped some serious hints about what really went down. The way things ended wasn't organic, Houston stated carefully. Some people behind the scenes were playing chess, not checkers. While he didn't name names directly, industry insiders have long suspected that certain management decisions strategically isolated Omarion from his bandmates. This revelation adds a new dimension to the long-standing rumors that Omarion was essentially groomed for solo stardom at the expense of group harmony. Sources close to B2K have suggested in past interviews that the other members were blindsided by decisions made without their input. "We'd show up to meetings and plans were already in motion," B2K once noted to a radio station in 2018, fueling speculation that the deck was stacked against the group's longevity. What's particularly interesting is how this aligns with the timing of Omarion's solo deal with Epic Records, which some industry observers believe was being negotiated while B2K was still actively touring. Former Scream tour choreographer Wade Robson reportedly witnessed tensions building backstage during their final shows together, describing separate conversations happening in separate rooms that created an atmosphere of division. Today, we're connecting these scattered pieces to reveal what might be the real story behind one of R&B's most abrupt and consequential breakups, and how Omarion may have been both beneficiary and victim of behind-the-scenes manipulation that forever altered his career trajectory. Before we dive into how B2K's management strategically dismantled the group to launch Omarion's solo career, hit that like button and subscribe to the channel if you're into deep dives like this. We break down the biggest stories in R&B history without the fluff. Just facts, receipts, and a bit of industry reality. And trust me, you're going to want to see how this one ends. Before we can understand Omarion's solo journey, we need to appreciate just how massive B2K was at their peak. Formed in 1998, the group's name stood for Boys of the New Millennium, and they represented a fresh take on the boy band formula with their R&B and hip-hop fusion. Omarion, born Omari Ishmael Granberry in Inglewood, California, was positioned as the group's lead singer and main dancer. Alongside Lil Fizz, B2K, and Raz B, they created a cultural phenomenon that had teenagers everywhere learning their dance moves and singing hits like Bump, 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 and Girlfriend. What made B2K stand out wasn't just their music, it was their complete package. Their style was influential, their choreography was next level, and their connection with their young audience was undeniable. At the height of their popularity, they weren't just musicians, they were legitimate teen idols who graced magazine covers, starred in the film You Got Served, and had merchandise flying off shelves. Behind this meteoric rise was manager Chris Stokes, who had assembled the group and guided their career with a very hands-on approach. Stokes wasn't just their manager. He was also directing their videos, producing their music, and controlling virtually every aspect of their professional lives. This level of control would later become a significant point of controversy. The group's success was remarkable but brief. After just 2 studio albums, and at the peak of their fame, B2K abruptly disbanded in 2004. The official reason given was that the members wanted to pursue solo careers, but as time would reveal, there were much more complicated factors at play behind the scenes. For Omarion, who had been the group's breakout star, the split presented both an opportunity and a challenge. At just 19 years old, he was now tasked with establishing himself as a solo artist while carrying the expectations that came with being the frontman of one of the biggest groups of that era. The transition from group member to solo star is notoriously difficult, and the music industry landscape was already shifting dramatically in the mid-2000s. What's particularly interesting about this period is how Omarion's public persona remained consistently positive and professional despite the group's dramatic dissolution. While rumors swirled about internal conflicts, he maintained his focus on the future rather than dwelling on the past, a pattern of conduct that would become characteristic of his approach to industry challenges throughout his career. When Omarion launched his solo career in 2005 with the album Oh, he hit the ground running. The project debuted at #1 on the Billboard 200, a remarkable achievement that seemed to confirm his star power could indeed translate beyond B2K. The lead single, Oh, showcased his smooth vocals and incredible dancing, while Touch demonstrated his ability to create mature R&B that appealed to an audience growing up alongside him. What many don't realize is the pressure Omarion faced during this transition. The music industry is notoriously unforgiving, and many former group members fade into obscurity when attempting solo careers. His success wasn't just about talent. It required strategic positioning and careful image management to evolve from teen idol to adult R&B star. His sophomore album, 21, continued this upward trajectory, with the Timbaland-produced Icebox becoming one of his signature hits. The song revealed a more vulnerable side to Omarion, dealing with heartbreak and emotional walls, themes that resonated with listeners and showcased his artistic growth. This period represented what seemed like a successful transition to long-term solo stardom. Then came a pivotal career move that would significantly alter his path, signing with Young Money Entertainment in 2009. On paper, joining Lil Wayne's label at the height of its power seemed like a brilliant strategic decision. Young Money was home to Drake and Nicki Minaj, both of whom were ascending to superstardom. For Omarion, this appeared to be the perfect platform to elevate his career to new heights. The reality, however, proved quite different. Despite the high-profile signing, Omarion's time with Young Money produced virtually no music and ended after less than a year. This brief and unproductive stint represented a significant momentum killer at a crucial point in his career. While his contemporaries were releasing albums and staying in the public eye, Omarion essentially disappeared from the music scene during what should have been his prime years. What's particularly telling about this period is how the industry's attention span had shortened dramatically. In the fast-moving digital age, being absent for even a short time could mean losing your position in the cultural conversation. For Omarion, the Young Money situation created a gap in his discography that proved difficult to overcome. After parting ways with Young Money, he signed with Maybach Music Group in 2012, joining Rick Ross's label in another attempt to revitalize his career. This move did yield some success, particularly with a hit single, Post to Be, featuring Chris Brown and Jhené Aiko in 2014. The song became a cultural moment, with Jhené's verse generating countless memes and bringing Omarion back into the mainstream conversation. While navigating his evolving music career, Omarion's personal life became increasingly public, particularly his relationship with April Jones. The couple welcomed 2 children together, son Mega in 2014 and daughter Ame in 2016, and their family life initially seemed to represent a stable counterpoint to the uncertainties of his professional journey. The decision to join the cast of Love and Hip Hop Hollywood in 2014 marked a significant shift in how Omarion engaged with fame. Reality television offered a new platform and audience, but it also meant opening his private life to public scrutiny in unprecedented ways. For an artist who had generally maintained a relatively private personal life, this represented a calculated risk to increase his visibility during a period when his musical output had become less consistent. Their relationship appeared solid on screen, with Omarion and April presenting as a united front amid the typical reality TV drama surrounding them. However, in what came as a surprise to many viewers, they announced their separation in 2016, shortly after the birth of their daughter. Omarion's statement at the time emphasized mutual respect and co-parenting, maintaining the composed public persona he had cultivated throughout his career. What followed, however, would test that composure in ways few could have anticipated. In 2019, news broke that April had begun dating Lil Fizz, Omarion's former B2K bandmate and someone he had known since adolescence. This development created a media firestorm, with many viewing it as an egregious violation of friendship and loyalty codes. The public's reaction was overwhelmingly supportive of Omarion, with social media users expressing outrage on his behalf. What made this situation particularly remarkable was Omarion's response, or rather, his apparent lack of one. In interviews during this period, he maintained his characteristic calm, refusing to speak negatively about either April or Fizz despite numerous opportunities to do so. During a November 2019 appearance on Vlad TV, when directly asked about the situation, Omarion simply stated, "I don't feel any way about it. I think if they're happy, then they should be happy." This measured response in the face of what many would consider a profound betrayal generated significant admiration, with many praising his maturity and restraint. This situation coincided with the announcement of the Millennium Tour, which would reunite B2K for performances across the country. The timing created an awkward professional dynamic, with Omarion and Fizz performing together nightly despite the personal drama unfolding in the background. The tour was successful nonetheless, demonstrating Omarion's ability to compartmentalize personal issues for the sake of his professional commitments and fan expectations. What's particularly noteworthy about this chapter is how it transformed public perception of Omarion. While his musical relevance had fluctuated, his handling of this personal situation earned him widespread respect for his emotional intelligence and dignity under pressure. In an industry often characterized by public feuds and emotional outbursts, his composed approach stood out as remarkably mature. The Millennium Tour of 2019 represented more than just a nostalgic reunion. It was a strategic career move that demonstrated Omarion's business acumen. Recognizing the growing trend of nostalgia-driven concerts, he helped orchestrate a tour that capitalized on millennial audiences' desire to revisit the soundtrack of their youth. The tour's success exceeded expectations, selling out venues across the country and proving there was still substantial demand for B2K's music and performance style. For Omarion specifically, it reintroduced him to audiences who may have lost track of his career and reminded the industry of his star power and performance abilities. What makes this chapter particularly interesting is how Omarion leveraged this momentum. Rather than simply riding the nostalgia wave, he used the tour as a platform to reassert his individual brand. His performances showcased not just the B2K hits, but his solo material as well, effectively bridging his past and present for a new generation of potential fans. The business side of this tour revealed Omarion's growth as an entrepreneur. Unlike the early days when he was primarily managed by others, he took an active role in the tour's organization and financial structure. This behind-the-scenes involvement demonstrated his evolution from young performer to savvy business person who understood his market value. Following the success of the first tour, Omarion announced a second Millennium Tour for 2020, but with a significant change, B2K would not be participating. Instead, he would headline alongside other 2000s acts like Bow Wow, Ashanti, and Pretty Ricky. This decision generated considerable speculation, particularly given the timing in relation to the April and Fizz situation. When asked about the decision to exclude B2K from the second tour, Omarion maintained his diplomatic approach while making it clear he was moving forward on his own terms. In a birthday Instagram post that coincided with the tour announcement, he stated, "2020 is my year of vision. I had to make some changes that would allow me to see clearer." The subtle yet pointed nature of this statement suggested personal boundaries without explicitly addressing the drama. The COVID-19 pandemic ultimately disrupted the 2020 tour plans, but Omarion continued to demonstrate resilience by adapting to the changing landscape. He used the forced downtime to develop other aspects of his brand, including his book, Unbothered, The Power of Choosing Joy, which expanded on the philosophy that had earned him so much respect during the April/Fizz situation. This period also saw Omarion exploring new creative avenues, including more independent music releases that gave him greater artistic control. His 2020 EP, The Connection, showcased a more mature sound while maintaining the smooth vocals and dance-friendly production that had always been his trademark. The project's release strategy, independent rather than through a major label, reflected his evolving approach to the music business. What's particularly notable about this phase of Omarion's career is his ability to transform potential setbacks into opportunities for growth and reinvention. Rather than being defined by group dynamics or personal drama, he consistently redirected focus to his artistry and professional evolution. The Versus battle between Omarion and Mario in June 2022 marked another pivotal moment in the public's reassessment of his career and legacy. What made this matchup particularly intriguing was the contrast between the two artists. Both emerged in the early 2000s, but their career paths and artistic approaches differed significantly. Going into the battle, expectations were high for Omarion. His reputation as an exceptional performer with both vocal and dance abilities had many predicting he would dominate the format. The reality, however, proved more complicated. While his performance showcased his signature dance moves and stage presence, the format's emphasis on vocal performance created challenges that many viewers felt favored Mario's more technically focused approach. Social media reaction to the battle was mixed, with many commentators focusing on moments that didn't land as intended rather than the entirety of Omarion's catalog and performance. This reaction highlighted how public perception can sometimes reduce complex artistic careers to simplified narratives or memorable moments rather than appreciating their full scope. What's particularly interesting about the Versus moment is how it prompted a broader cultural conversation about Omarion's contributions to R&B and pop culture. Beyond the immediate reactions, it inspired many to revisit his catalog and recognize the significant impact he had made on dance, fashion, and performance styles in the 2000s and beyond. This cultural reassessment extended to discussions about the challenges faced by male R&B artists in maintaining career longevity. Omarion's journey illustrated the difficult navigation between artistic authenticity and commercial viability in a genre that had seen significant shifts in sound and audience expectations over the 2 decades of his career. Throughout this period of public re-examination, Omarion maintained his characteristic poise. Rather than becoming defensive about critiques or comparisons, he engaged with the conversation on his own terms, often emphasizing gratitude for his journey and the opportunity to connect with audiences across different phases of his career. His approach to social media during this time reflected a thoughtful engagement with his legacy. Rather than chasing trends or controversy, he used platforms like Instagram to share insights into his creative process, spiritual practices, and personal philosophy. This authentic presentation resonated with many followers who appreciated seeing an artist comfortable in his own skin rather than desperately seeking relevance. The post-Versus period also saw Omarion leaning more into his identity as a holistic artist whose work encompasses music, dance, writing, and spiritual practice. This integrated approach represented a mature evolution from his early days as a manufactured pop star, demonstrating how artists can grow and redefine themselves beyond the constraints of their initial public introduction. What makes this chapter of Omarion's story particularly compelling is how it represents a reclaiming of narrative. Rather than being defined solely by his past with B2K, relationship drama, or any single performance, he has consistently worked to establish himself as a multifaceted artist whose value transcends commercial metrics or momentary cultural trends. As we reflect on Omarion's 2-decade journey through the entertainment industry, several key themes emerge that provide valuable insights not just about his career, but about navigating fame and artistic evolution in the modern era. Perhaps most striking is his remarkable emotional intelligence and composure in the face of public challenges. In an industry where dramatic reactions and public feuds often generate headlines, Omarion's consistent, unbothered approach stands as a refreshing alternative. This isn't just about maintaining a public image. It represents a genuine life philosophy that prioritizes inner peace over external validation or revenge. His career trajectory also highlights the complex reality of talent versus timing in the music industry. Despite possessing exceptional abilities as both a vocalist and dancer, Omarion's career momentum was significantly impacted by industry shifts and business decisions that occurred at crucial junctures. His experience demonstrates that sustained success requires not just artistic gifts but strategic positioning and adaptability to changing market conditions. The evolution of his public persona from manufactured teen idol to authentic adult artist offers lessons in personal growth under the spotlight. Unlike many child stars who either remain trapped in nostalgia or reject their past entirely, Omarion has found ways to honor his origins while continuing to evolve. This balanced approach has allowed him to maintain connections with longtime fans while also establishing relevance with new audiences. His entrepreneurial development represents another significant aspect of his journey. From his early days as primarily a performer to his later involvement in tour organization, independent music releases, and brand extensions like his book, Omarion has demonstrated the importance of artists taking control of their business affairs rather than remaining solely dependent on traditional industry structures. What's particularly noteworthy about Omarion's legacy is how he has maintained cultural relevance across different eras. From the boy band phenomenon of the early 2000s through the reality TV boom of the 2010s to the social media age of the 2020s, he has found ways to engage with each new platform while maintaining his core artistic identity. This adaptability without compromise represents a delicate balance that few artists successfully achieve. For younger artists, Omarion's journey offers valuable lessons about longevity and resilience. His career demonstrates that the path isn't always linear and that commercial peaks and valleys are inevitable. What matters is maintaining artistic integrity and personal well-being throughout these fluctuations rather than allowing external metrics to define one's worth or happiness. As Omarion continues to write new chapters in his story, what remains consistent is his commitment to growth and authenticity. Whether he's performing for thousands on tour or sharing spiritual insights on social media, he brings the same intentionality and presence to his work, qualities that ensure his influence will continue to resonate regardless of changing trends or industry dynamics.